Welcome to the Happiness Podcast. I'm Dr. Robert Puff. One of the biggest challenges we have to face in life is the mundane. After we've done something, seen something, experienced something, life can get boring, or we don't want to do that anymore. A sense of malaise, depression can kick in, and we just don't know what can bring us excitement or joy or even happiness anymore. We've seen it, we've done it, and now what do we do? And this behavior can start at a very young age. Think of children when the holidays come, like their birthday. They're so excited for their present, they just can't wait. They talk about it for days and weeks on end. And then when they get that present, as adults, we're amazed at how quickly they move on and don't want to play with that thing anymore. That present that they were so excited for weeks is now sitting against the wall, unattended, left alone. Or think about our own lives. We go to school, we study, we learn a skill. We're so excited for a new job. Perhaps we're a lawyer, perhaps we're a doctor, perhaps we're a teacher. And then we get that job, we start doing it. And again, what happens with so many people is the mundane sets in, boredom sets in, and often that which we spent years training for, we don't like anymore. Or a partner that we meet that we're so in love with, we just can't wait to spend our life with. The years go by and sometimes that changes too. And if life gets severe, sometimes we can feel that sense of depression kicking in. And if that gets severe enough, sometimes we feel like we want to die. Now this is called the Happiness Podcast, so let's turn in the direction of making things better. I only use these examples to help us realize that, yes, in life sometimes we can get stuck, but there's always ways out, which we're going to explore today. Recently, I was on a short trip to Dallas, Texas, and while I was there, I visited the Dallas Museum of Art. Well, one of my favorite artists in the world is Vincent van Gogh, and while I was in Dallas at the museum, they had a special exhibit that they had put together called Van Gogh and the Olive Groves. It was the largest collection of Van Gogh paintings outside of Holland that I'd ever seen, and it was magnificent. And as I was blessed to have this amazing experience of gazing at his most beautiful paintings, it truly was a magical experience. And because I have a deep passion for art, I visited art museums around the world in the most often obscure places, because truly there are art museums pretty much anywhere. I live in the Los Angeles area, and we have some great museums, the Getty, the Los Angeles County Museum of Art, the Norton Simon Museum. But recently, again, I was in Salt Lake City, and at one of the universities there, they had their own little art museum, and they actually had a Gainsborough, again, one of my favorite painters, and it was a great experience seeing all that beautiful art in a city that isn't renowned for great artworks. We have art all around us if we look. So what does art have to do with the mundane, with our boredom, with our depression of life sometimes? I want to read a quote from Pablo Picasso. Again, a quote I recently discovered, but is so true. He wrote, "Art washes away from the soul the dust of everyday life." Let me repeat that. Art washes away from the soul the dust of everyday life. What I believe Pablo Picasso is referring to here is the ability of art to help us see the world with new eyes, to be able to experience life from different perspectives, to begin to keep our eyes open so that we don't get bored and we continue to grow and experience life in new and beautiful ways. I believe if we are not actively doing things to keep our eyes fresh, to be able to see the world in new ways, whether it's through art or through a myriad of other avenues, that the dust of life will settle on our souls, and with that pain, we'll turn to things to numb that pain, like addictions, like coming home and watching mindless television, like coming home and drinking ourselves into oblivion, like taking drugs or things like that just to distract ourselves from the boredom of life. Boredom is a very dangerous emotion. And if we're not careful to cultivate things that bring newness and freshness to life, we are going to suffer. And art is just one of many avenues to help us keep our hearts open. The key isn't to go to art museums. The key is to see things new, to expose ourselves to things with new eyes, with fresh eyes, in order that we can keep depression at bay, in order that we cannot say, life, you're boring, and I just want to numb myself from that boredom. Life gives us so many opportunities to see things new, but we have to go look for them. The museums, the art museums of the world are a good example of that. When we go to them, we will see things new. Seeing things from the perspective of these most amazing artists, and allows us to keep our hearts open, to keep our hearts fresh, because there is just so much in life that is routine. But when we learn to keep our hearts open, we learn that even in the routine, there's always something beautiful that we can focus on, no matter where we're at. I remember when I was doing my residency at the VA hospital in Sepulveda, I used to every day take my lunch on the grass, and there were so many amazing things to see. The birds would be flying by, the insects would be crawling across the ground, and I kept my eyes young and new, so I saw them from different perspectives. Sometimes I would get really close and look up close. Sometimes I would lay on my back and look up at the sky and the wind blowing through the trees. There are so many different ways that we can see our world. And even in the most mundane of places, the people that we work with, do we truly know their lives or what's going on? The things that we are doing at work, could we learn new things? Could we explore? Could we expand our knowledge base? When we're driving to work, could we listen to things that help us grow and improve our lives? When we're home, could we watch documentaries or YouTubes that would improve our life or add beauty and wonder to our sense of the universe? There are just so many ways we can expose ourselves to beauty, to the wonders of the universe. But it is work. It is effort. We have a tendency to be lazy. And I don't mean that critical. It's just easier. Isn't it easier just to come home than it is to go to the gym? But guess what? Like with going to the gym, with time, we like going to the gym. The people that go to the gym like being there. When it's new, we don't. But then we cultivate the skills of, I like this. And it's the same way with learning, with growing, with exposing ourselves to new things. It's a skill that we can improve. And once we do that, instead of watching a mundane show, or instead of just caught up in doing nothing, we have hearts that are open. We have minds that want to explore the world and truly suck the marrow out of life in all situations. For one person, something that is very boring. For another, it can be a symphony playing. It's all based on our perspective, what we're looking at, what we're seeing. Are our hearts open? And when they are, we benefit from the beauty that we engage with in our lives. And it is so much based upon our perspective. I live in Southern California, and we have the most magnificent sunsets. And yet one person can go to the beach and swim out to the ocean so they never come back because they just want to kill themselves, while another person can be steeping themselves in that beautiful sunset and finding such joy and bliss in that moment. The event is the same. The experience is very different. If we really work towards cultivating a newness, a freshness with life, looking at it from different perspectives, sometimes literally, just looking around and saying, what am I missing here? What have I not seen? Haven't we all gone through life where something changed and it changed for so long and we just didn't notice it because we didn't look. That is so common in life. We miss out on so much because we're focused often in our heads. When we get out of our heads and we begin to look around, we'll be amazed at how much there is to see. And I think this is where art plays a good part in this. It's from the artist's perspective, and we see that he or she sees the world differently than we do. And it allows us to open, to expand our consciousness so that we too can see things from a different, perhaps much more beautiful perspective. And if we cultivate that skill of going to art museums and seeing the beauty and freshness there, I really believe what we'll do with time is cultivate that skill throughout our lives. When we come home and our spouse or our children are there, we'll stop saying, I know you. Instead, we'll say, who are you? Let me get to know you even better today. What am I missing? What have I not seen? And perhaps, how are you changing that I can discover as we go forward in our relationship? This is true for all of us in all situations. I really believe that. This skill takes work. This ability to see things with fresh eyes, to be open, to be the explorer of our universe. But when we do that, we benefit. We lose that sense of mundaneness with life. And we dust off from our soul the boredom that can so much creep in our lives. Instead, what we'll discover is life is an adventure that we're given a certain amount of time to explore. And we're going to become super explorers of life. And with this cultivated skill, what we'll discover is the happiness, the joy in life that we've been seeking is there. It's always been there. We just needed to dust it off. And when it's dusted off, our souls shine. Because we discover and keep discovering that life is a beautiful adventure. Thank you for joining me on the Happiness Podcast. If you'd like to learn more about the podcast, please go to happinesspodcast.org. And until next time, accept what is, love what is.